So Chris and I talked about, whether, he asked me, is there a speech where he defends the neighborhood? Because the theme of tonight is neighborhood, right? And I couldn't find a speech where it defends the neighborhood, but I did find, I spliced together two moments in Congress for My Vote, My Conscience, which is about his speeches, where somebody's basically, a congressman is basically dissing him, right? And he's put in a position where he's defending the neighborhood. So I'm going to do I'm going to be doing a presentation, a speech, right, where I'm speaking against legislation that is anti-labor, is anti-working class, anti-working people, anti-union, and Eddie, Eduardo Sanchez, is going to play the congressman who basically tries to disrupt me, okay? The audience is always cued as to when I'm being Vito Marcantonio because I'm wearing a fedora, even if I'm in a congressional context. So, to the gentleman from Illinois, that I opposed President Truman's proposal at the time he came here during the railroad strike. But that is neither here nor there. Let us judge this legislation by just what it is. As I was saying, these big monopolies that have been taking millions and millions of dollars out of the pockets of American consumers are the ones who want this legislation. They are the ones who today make it impossible for labor to bargain. They are the ones who are today adamant in their refusal to negotiate agreements on wages and hours and refuse to give the American worker a wage with which he can keep up with the increasing cost of living. They want this legislation, they support it from A to Z in order to continue to deprive Americans of their share of the peace after World War II. May I say to the gentleman from Illinois who asked about the gentleman on this side of the aisle a while ago that the gentleman from Illinois cannot point out a single opponent of this bill among the big trusts, but that have been profiteering and racketeering. Wholesale racketeering. That is what this amounts to. The worst kind of racketeering. Increasing the cost of living at the expense of the American consumer. Did any one of them ever come out against this kind of legislation? No. They have paid out millions of dollars to put in advertisements supporting it. They have issued tons of literature for it. They have their radio commentators, their columnists, and the press busily engaged smearing labor. All of them have been drumming the war drums against the men and women of America whose only crime has been to try to obtain for themselves and their families a decent standard of living.
Mr. Speaker, will the gentleman yield?
I yield to the gentleman.
I want to acknowledge the gentleman from New York, for the gentleman knows what a racketeer is, especially in his own district.
My district is just as good, if not better, than the gentleman's district, and I am mighty proud of my district. My district is a district of homes, schools, churches, and workers whose people gave their sons for freedom, but do not go around bragging about it. You cannot meet the issues and you go dragging out a red herring.
I would remind the gentleman from New York that many of us in this Congress represent districts who have known the meaning of democracy 100 years before the gentleman from New York ever saw the Statue of Liberty.
I would remind the gentleman of this House of the casualties and the number of men from my district who engaged on every battlefield. While the people of my district did not come over on the Mayflower, they have always fought for liberty. We are an integral part of the living flesh and blood of this country.
I will identify the red herring too.
Mr. Speaker, I will decline to yield any further.